Okay, Shalom, Shalom, Kwam Yasha'Allah, Koholo Yimala Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, H.I.M, Rakahakadash. Double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone who do rule well, that by the Spirit taught us this beautiful truth. Just want to say the water to all the H.I.M and Akwaf that's out here sincerely keeping the laws, the statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai to the best of their ability. It's Jah Khanan Awaf. It's coming at you with another quick lesson, praying that it's edifying by the Spirit. And right here, as you can see, these are the Mowry twins. And this is their mother. And what we have here is these two young ladies right here. If their dad is really a so-called white man, then they're Edomites. They just look like us. And this is where Yahweh Shai, he goes into the parable of the wheat and the tares. And if you're familiar with wheat and tares, you can look it up. I normally Google it, and I'm not for it right now for the sake of time or whatever. But you can Google wheat and tares. Wheat and tares look exactly alike until they grow all the way up, until, when it's time to harvest it. That's when you can kind of tell. It's still a little bit, you could tell if you're a farmer, but if you didn't know no better, if you seen wheat and tares growing up together, they look exactly alike until the harvest comes. But these two women right here, they look like they could be so-called black women, but in reality, they are really so-called white women. And we say so-called because there's no such thing as white people. They're pinkish to reddish in color. But they really got their color from their mom, and their dad is a so-called white man, you see? And you are exactly what your dad is. You can't get around it. That's biblical. See, the so-called white man, he came up with these terms, biracial, multiracial, mixed, and all these different things. There's no such thing as that in the scriptures. You are exactly what your dad is because your dad carries the seed. See? The sperm that's swimming in the dad's scrotum or his ball sack or whatever, not to sound vivid, but those are already kids. The woman is just earth. She's just ground that seed is being planted into. And that ground, it's just like any plant that you plant in the ground. The ground gives it nutrients. It brings it forth. You know what I'm saying? And then voila, you got the fruit of the seed. So these right here are really so-called white women. And we like to, always bring up like Tracy Ellis Ross. She looks like us. She look like she can, could be a so-called black woman, but that's an Edomite. She's a so-called white woman. Jesse Smollett, them Smollett family, them twin. Them actors. The whole family of them. Those are Edomites. Lenny Kravitz. It's a bunch of people out here that look like us, but they're not actually us. They're imposters, man. So the title on it says Tia Mowry opens up about being biracial. I identify myself as a black woman. See, there's no such thing as biracial. And matter of fact, when you look up that term is not even that old. I think that term came out in like late 1970s, early 80s. So that term is not that old when you look it up. I haven't looked it up in a while, but I know it's not that old because people knew that you were exactly what your dad is. You see? And see, the so-called white man during slavery, he went out, he raped our women, grandmama and whoever, in the cabin at night, and he would lay with her and lay seed, and some of those babies would come out looking chocolate, but they were actually so-called white people. And so as time went on, there are a lot of people out here that can be as dark as this so-called black woman right here, their mom. She could be a damn Edomite. Not to say it like that, but I mean, there are Edomites that's so-called white people that's as dark as her. So it's not a color thing when it comes to the Hebrew Israelite truth. This truth that we're into, it's a DNA thing. It's a bloodline, lineage, pedigree thing, because you are exactly what your father is. If you come from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you are an Israelite. If you come from Abraham, Isaac, and Esau, you are an Edomite. It's that simple. You can have a so-called Chinese man. He can lay with a so-called black woman. The child might come out with the little chinky eyes and look as dark as Wesley Snipes. That's a so-called Chinese kid. That'll be a Moabite. So that's one of the stumbling blocks that the so-called white man has put out here to basically, he's a fugitive. He's trying to hide himself under these colors and European and Russian and American and Italian and, German, all those names. None of those names are biblical. See, we all have a biblical name, you see? But let's see what she's talking about. She says she identifies as a black woman. She really don't have no choice because that's what she looks like. If she looked more like her dad, she would just go ahead and pass for a so-called white woman. Trust me. It says Tia Mowry is a strong black woman. Yeah, right. because she was raised by one. And on the Cool Mom podcast, the mother of two gets candid about her identity. Mowry sat down with host Lizzie Mattis to discuss growing up in the spotlight, embracing identifies as a black woman. As a mixed race woman, see that there's no such thing as mixed in a minute. You sound like you identify more in one way or the other. Is that true or no? Mattis asks. She said, yeah, Mowry responds. I identify myself as a black woman. My mother is black. You know what I mean? I feel like my mother is a strong woman. I have seen and have felt, and my mother is dark skinned. I have seen and felt her struggles as being a black woman. And so to me, I am, of course, my dad is white. See, there you go. She's telling you her dad is white. Her dad is an Edomite. She's a fucking Edomite. And that's why the Lord said he's coming to separate the wheat and the tares. He's going to gather the wheat to put into his barn, which will be the Israelites. He's going to gather the tares and bundle them up for the fire, which is the Edomites. You see what I'm saying? It says, but I am an extension of my mother. So yes, I am mixed race, but it's how I identify myself, and I identify myself as a black woman. That is how I've been viewed, how I've been seen. She don't have no choice because she looks like a black woman. Like I said again, if she, turned out to be more looking like her dad, she would run with that. Trust me. Trust me. When I tell you that, trust me. If she could get away with being a so-called white woman, trust me, she would. Salakia. But anyway, let's just grab the quick scripture real quick. I don't want to keep it long because I'm kind of doing something right off. I kind of seen the story and just wanted to pop outside and get into it real quick. But this is Numbers 1:18. And get straight to the point. 1:18, it says, and they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month, and they declared their pedigrees, see, their ancestry after their families by the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names from 20 years old and upward by their polls. So your family, your lineage goes by your father. That's the reason why I say, like, a man to have a son, that son keeps his father's name, so on and so forth. But when he has a daughter, she'll have his name until she gets married. And then she takes on the name of that family that she married into. You see? That son, he's going to have, as long as there's sons being born, those sons are going to carry on that name. Even though, like if you have daughters, they're still going to be, the seed line of their father. But, once she basically marries away from her father's house and become a part of another father's house by her husband, then, now she's carrying on a new lineage for that man's household. But the son, he carries the seed. He's the one that's carrying on the household or the pedigree or the ancestry or the, the seed line, so to speak. I mean, it's common sense. It's really just common sense. But the so-called white man, he has thrown these bywords out, these, just different names and, you're this, you're 10% this, you're 5% that, you're 20% German, you're, and you got people that, especially so-called black people, they love doing that shit. They love being everybody except for who they are. Oh yeah, I'm half this, I'm half that. Proud to just be all these different things, not knowing that, nope, you're exactly what your dad is. If your dad is a Negro, that's exactly what you are. If your dad is a so-called white man, then that's exactly what you are. It don't make no difference what you turn out looking like. That's a common, real stumbling block amongst, especially people of the Americas and just in general, all over the world, because the so-called white man, he has been sneaky and craftily, pushing that bullshit to hide who he is. Because see, he's a fugitive. He's on the run. He doesn't want nobody to know who he is. So now he's out here hiding behind colors and these different names. Like, look, none of that shit exists, man. So I just wanted to just touch on that, man. So with that, I pray that the lesson was edifying. Kwame Shalom.